Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time again. The podcast known as Dirtbagz back in your ear. I'm your host, Josh Curran, along with my co-host, Danny Curran. Danny Curran, what's happening, mate? How you doing today?
Oh, mate, I am living the dream. It's going to be a fantastic one today because I've got my mate and your mate, Mick Marson, in here. He is a driver, a builder, a fabricator, a gearbox guru, in case you didn't know. He's an event promoter and he's an international superstar, Josh. So, Mick Marson, tell us a little bit about you and how you got racing, mate.
Oh, I don't know about the superstar, mate. G'day, guys. Yeah, JCDC. Thanks for having me on. God, how did I get started? Well, I guess back in, I don't even know what year it was. I think it was 1982. Guys up the road were building buggies and I was 12 years old and my dad let me build a buggy at 12. So we bought a Cobra frame and we went and commandeered a couple of 1200cc Beetles from a little town about half an hour away. And yeah, then the dream was born. We just put together a buggy and I've still got it here. Actually, it's parked outside the shed. So that was where I got started. And I guess a lot of good afternoons after school after that. And and I always sort of was that sort of kid that I guess I laid in my bed at night once I had a buggy and I was watching a few of those. I don't know if you remember a few of those Kempsey videos that were actually on Channel 7, and I remember watching them and then laying in bed that night thinking one day I'm going to race the Australian Championship and all that sort of stuff. So that's where my dream was born, and never really come from a motorsport family or anything like that. Like we never had any of that. And probably much to Dad's disgust after he worked out, after he let me build that buggy. And I think I put about 1 million kilometers on it between sort of 12 and 17 and a few upgrades. And that's where it all started for me. So that's a long time ago now. I'm 50 now. So that was too long ago to remember.
Now, Mick, and for all our listeners at home, if you're not familiar with Mick Marson, he's one of our awesome North Queensland racers. And not only that, one of the things, Mick, and I know we're fans of this, is that you're a Ford boy. A lot of Chevs out, a lot of turbo Nissans. But the North Queenslanders, they do it a little bit different. You got some super fast Toyotas and a very cranky SVO Ford. Run us down like you've just always been a Ford guy.
Yeah, well, Dad had Fords. He actually had a Valiant, which I know you guys will be impressed with. He had a Valiant, and then moved to the Ford. And a lot of where we come from, a lot of it's about who your local dealership is, right? So, and who gives you your best service. So, I guess Dad sort of went that way, and I come through the era of Dick Johnson and all that sort of stuff. So I'd be glued to the Channel 7 screen on a weekend, Group C or whatever they used to be back then. And watching Johnson and whatever, and plus a lot of the people around me were Ford people. My older brother he had some good classic cars, and one of my really good mates, John Barbagallo, who builds that engine that's in my current car. I mean, been mates with him forever, and he drag raced Ford sedans and everything back in the day. And I guess it was always that pulverizing conversation at school or wherever, who was better, Ford or Chev or Holden. So yeah, I've just been going down that path all the time. And like I said, when I was that young kid, sort of laying in bed thinking I'm going to race one day, I'm going to have a screaming Ford V8 in the back of my car. So that's I guess where it come from.
So you really did grow up in the era of whoever wins on Sunday sells on Monday?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I was born in 71, so I just missed all that 1971 with the the phase 3s and all that sort of stuff, and I sort of grew into that sort of late 79 80s XDs, XE Falcons, and Windsors and Clevelands, and you can just about ask me anything about those type of engines, and I just know it naturally because I grew up with it.
That's brilliant, mate. Now that sort of leads us into, like, you've been racing quite a while and you've had a large range of experience, everything from little cars and to fast, really, really top level fast cars, including you've now got a trophy truck over in the States or as part of a conglomeration of Australian races over there. What's your best memory of off-road racing? What really stands out for you? There's probably 100 of them, Mick, but one that stands out?
Oh, well, the pinnacle of what I've ever done in my career, I guess, if you call it career, I guess, but it's a sport, fun sport. But definitely the pinnacle and the most exhilarating thing I've done was definitely Baja in 17 with when a good mate of mine, Luke Urseg, asked me to drive the last leg on the 50th anniversary. And to say that week was the craziest week of my life was probably a fair understatement. And I guess, you know, that actual race led us to, you know, things like Don River Dash. So I've got to say, finishing that race, being involved in it, just some of the things we did in that week, and especially that 35 hours that car was running non-stop was the craziest thing I've ever done, in the sense that the most exhilarating, you know, the you know, you're down the peninsula of Baja, 30 miles from anyone you know. You're just racing along a beach, and you've just got to trust the little screen in front of you. It tells you you're doing the right thing, and and to eventually sort of turn out there at La Paz, you know, 10 hours after we hopped in the car was just phenomenal. Probably the best feeling I've ever had in the sport. There's lots of others too. You know, winning my first race, probably experience of really good cars. You know, just recently been in America, driving a trophy truck in America, you know, 950 horsepower trophy truck through holes that we couldn't dream to drive through here is probably the next level, where you know, the experience where you thought you'd experienced a fair bit, and then you do something like that and it really opens your eyes up.
That's fascinating, Mick, because I totally agree. I mean, we've only spectated in Mexico, but I think that was one of those experiences that you've seen the DVDs, we know roughly what's going on, but it's not until you get down onto that peninsula that you just see it's a whole different world, isn't it? Like Southern California is very much like racing in Australia. Like, you know, I know it's a bit rougher, but you're still on bitumen, you still got pitches. But Mexico is a whole different world. Guys, if you're listening along at home, you go down San Felipe and basically the main street is bitumen and maybe a little bit of town. But then to go to your, and I use these words, 5-star resort, it's a dirt road to the beach. Like, it's a whole different Wild West feel, isn't it? But, you know, like, you take the right people, the right crew, I don't believe it's unsafe. You wouldn't want to be lost on your own as an Australian. It's somewhere you need to be aware of what's going on. But if you go down with a group team and someone that knows, it's one of those experiences that I'd tell anyone to go to. You'd agree, wouldn't you, Mick? Like, it's not as scary as you think, as long as you've got the right people around you.
No, that's right. And look, we, you know, myself, good mate, Talbot Cox that raced with me that day, we did 200 miles each as driver navigator and swapped over. And we had our normal navies with us, Andy North and Chris Colborne, and to travel down in a hire car, pre-run in our section, which, to put it in perspective, like, we live in North Queensland, which is, you know, 1,400 k's from Brisbane, and we had to go down and pre-run like the section from Gold Coast to Sydney. So we spent a day and a half driving down there, and then we had to jump on and pre-run. We found where we were going to swap over. We went to, you know, predetermined silt beds. We checked them out. We did a section of whooped track that would just make you cry. Most people cry, and we drove that in a high, and I think it was like a Toyota 4Runner or something for about 20 miles, and then we said, we're going to kill this thing. So we jumped off and found another road, and the things we did. Then we got all the way down there, and we, you know, it was safe. It was safe. We got all the way to La Paz. We saw the finish line, and then we realized that we weren't going to make it back up to Ensenada. So we ditched a hire car in long-term parking. We jumped on a flight. We flew to Tijuana. We got another hire car, drove back to Ensenada for just in time for for scrutineering, which is just the most amazing thing at the 1,000. Like to see 100,000 people up that one street, and hardly anybody speaks English is incredible. The prawn tacos were nicer, I can tell you.
Yeah.
And and then to sort of watch Luke take off the line, hop back in the hire car, go up to Tijuana, fly all the way to La Paz, get our car back out, get up to our changeover point in the middle of the night on roads that had no centerline markings and the lights were crap on the car. And to do, if you said to do that now and you're going to be 100% safe and everything's cool, you'd think you were nuts. But that was the most amazing experience, and look, relatively safe in a group. And we had 20 of the best, funnest people, greatest people I've ever been away on a trip with in my life. And it's definitely something that I'll never forget. And yes, the Baja is something you should really do, just to experience it, just to, you won't experience what we experienced probably if you go in there as a spectator, because you don't quite, we had a plan, we had GPS destinations to find. We used that, we devised plans, we had to change our plans 2 or 3 times along the way. It was crazy, but it was doable for most people. And I believe someone like Chris Weston's got that tour thing happening now, and that's ideal, because what we found was when we went down there, excuse me, and those guys had been there 2 or 3 times before. So when we got to the border, they knew what to do. When we got down to a certain motel, they knew what to do. So for us, we weren't trying to work it out on the run. But the bit where we went pre-run on our own, that was just make it up as we went, and that was incredible.
Brilliant. Because again, if you listen along at home on the podcast and you've never seen this style of racing, if you've got a four-wheel drive background, what Mick's talking about, first off, I think the thing that tricks you a little bit is they call it the Baja 1000, but on a full peninsula run, Mick, how many miles? It was 1,300. Like they're a bit longer than 1,000, aren't they?
Yeah, it was the 15th anniversary on that attempt, and that's why Luke wanted to do it. So it was 1,240 miles in distance, and I guess that's like going from Townsville to Sydney, pretty much, in distance, non-stop. So the car, we did 400 miles each pairing of driver navigator did 400 miles each or thereabouts, and like to do that kind of thing. And look, to be honest with you, there was a very, 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 very good chance that, the car never made it to us. So that's something we were prepared for, from the get-go. Like we paid money in to be able to do it. I was fortunate enough to get Luke come and approach me at Gundawindi and that year and said to me, would you be interested in driving the last leg? And when someone sort of says something like that to you and you just sort of, a lot of the time you go, I couldn't do that. But I just remember thinking to myself, just say yes and see what happens. So I said yes. I said I'd be super interested. I don't think I slept that night. I laid down. It was after presentation, so it was Sunday night after a Gundy race, and I laid down there, and I reckon I barely slept a wink. And I woke up the next morning, and I walked over to Talbot's trailer, and I said, mate, we're doing the Baja, and you and I are going to do half each, and this is what we're going to do, and our navvies are coming with us. And it all just happened like that. And I probably can't thank Luke Urseg enough for that, for that opportunity. And like I did ask him probably before we left, I said, why Jarks me? And it was something that, probably in my career, I haven't been maybe the quickest overall at races or whatever, but I've always prided myself on finishing a race. And, my car that I currently have, I worked it out last month. It's got a 90% finish rate. And Luke said to me, he goes, because I wanted someone who was going to drive that could bring a car home. And I just thought, wow, that's cool. So I was pretty proud of that. Asking Talbot to jump on board with us and do it was a no-brainer, someone who had the capacity to do it, and then asking our two, really close mates that are in the cars with us all the time. that was the next step, and they jumped at the opportunity. So it was a really good experience, and one I'd sort of definitely recommend to anyone if you got the chance. I mean, not everyone can do it. It's a difficult time of the year for us to be away, but we made it happen, and I'm glad we did.
Hey, Mick, we get a little bit sidetracked on this podcast, but two interesting things there is Ursix, I wanted to mention that their frame has just had a win. Did he win outright just recently?
Yeah, at Perilla.
Yes, Perilla. How brilliant
Mate,
is that?
I'm so happy for Luke, because Luke's, I know most people know Luke Ursig, and he's probably the hardest working guy, and his work is equivalent to anything that happens in the States. Like I've always been super proud and really eager to show off, you know, the engineering masterclass that's on my racer engineering car. But when you look at Luke's work, it's right up there, equal to that. So Luke's, you know, done it pretty hard. He's done the hard yards, and he's he's brought in that new style of car, and I couldn't be happier for him. I just think he's definitely a fabricator of the future. And whilst a couple have dropped off in our Australian stuff, you know, Luke is definitely up there with the pick of them for sure.
Yep. And then the other thing I was going to say is you mentioned Talbot Cox there, and we'll get him on a podcast at some point if he's happy to chat to us. But he's another one, mate. You know, again, we get sidetracked, but you guys, in the time that we've known you, which is relatively short, but it's a good couple of years now, and since when you got the races over, mate, I want to personally say it's been a pleasure to watch you guys. You know, you've got on top of the suspension, on top of the cars, faster, and you know, Talbot and yourself now are a true fight Think. Like, we love sitting, you know, watching it on the live stream there at Think, and watching you guys come home and the results that you guys are getting now. You know, please don't take this. I hope you're in agreement with me, but you know, you're a good top 10 guys. Well, now you're pushing for those outright positions, and that's not a joke. You're talking about guys like Shannon Ranch, you know, Ryan Taylor, those guys are no joke. You know, it's all good to sit in your armchair and I'd run the top 5. Oh man, top 5 at any of these races that you guys are running top 5 at, mate. It's been a pleasure to see you guys, and again with that 90% finish rate, because that's probably another interesting point. It probably is easy. Oh, I don't want to say easy. That's a wrong word. But, you know, you can push and have breakages, but to have a 90% finish rate and your finish position, Mick, it's an absolute accomplishment, and you should be proud of that, mate, because, man, that new car, I know it's a few of them are getting a few kilometers on there. Yours isn't quite as new as it was, is it? It's done a little bit now. How long has it been?
Well, I got it over here at the end of 13, so it's already 9 years old.
Yeah.
But I think the secret to, I mean, and I actually think it's the secret's not that hard. I mean, for starters, you've got to start with a really good car, and once it's a good car that you don't have to change and all you got to do is maintain. It's a huge difference, and that's what, you know, people sort of say, you know, geez, you know, your car just keeps going and going and going. And yes, I've had a couple of failures and stuff, which probably stopped me from being on a podium a couple of times. But, you know, I think the secret is a good car to start with. Preparation is just absolute key. I mean, I do not really let anything go unchecked before national big races. And obviously the other thing is very reliable engine and transmission. I mean, if you don't have those things, you can be the best driver in the world. It don't mean much, does it? So you know, like I said, Talbot's definitely more at the pointy end than I've always been. But between us, I guess it's been a good combination. Fairly similar cars, you know, and those cars, I think in the last 9 years we've done Fink. I think between us we've had something like about 9 or 10 top 10. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's something that I'd love to achieve, being on the podium at Fink. I actually can't go this year because I've got something on that I can't be away for. Yeah, no, unfortunately, it's the first one. This would have been, I think, my 10th. 10th Fink, 9th straight, 10th Fink attempt. But, yeah, I'm pretty proud of what I've done there. For someone who just does all the work in his shed on his own pretty much, and Chris Colwyn, my navvy, comes up, you know, a couple of weekends before and most races, and he has to travel 4 hours one way just to get to my place. And So a lot of the preparation gets done, where behind closed doors, no one sees it, but pretty methodical. And my engine builder, John Barbagallo, I'm actually currently there now. We've only just received parts, for 4 months of order. So I'm getting a motor together again now just as a refresh. But all of those things are critical. If you get one thing, as you boys know, if you get one thing wrong, in a prep, that's all that matters. 2 failures I've had at Fink have just been absolutely stupid mistakes. And that's the way it is, right? You could be doing really well, and one little thing lets you down. So preparation's key, and having the right componentry. I mean, I used to try and make bits and do this and do that, but look, now you purchase the race bit, you purchase a piece that's proven to do the job, and look, 99 times out of 100 it will, and that's the secret.
Well, it's interesting, Mick, too, you talk about that. Josh and I had a conversation on the last podcast about the gear too that's available, because you've been around a little while, we've been around a while. We're actually talking about cast heads and bits and pieces that we used to try to die grind to get. And again, this might get a bit tech heavy, but for some of our listeners, but used to be trying to get flow like 300 cc's and that. And now you can buy these aluminium heads off the shelf with 480 cc heads and all flow rates I'm talking about. And that's where it really has gone amazing, is that we can buy so many high quality components, and then we're getting much better at piecing those components together. We're not silly anymore. We don't put the massive cam with the terrible heads or the wrong, we've got options with respect to inlet manifolds and all of that really piecing together now. Like, again, I can't suggest this enough. I don't know whether I was out of the loop, but if you had told me in 90s that you could get a 5.7 litre, smaller than a 350 cubic inch Chev to rev to 9,000 and make 820 odd horsepower, that would be unbelievable. Like that's pro stock stuff. And now it is, well, Mick, you've done a whole season on essentially a freshener. Like, you're not really changing components on your motor. You're just checking valve flash, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. And look, and that's the beauty about, because a lot of people can build race engines too, but it's the guys who can design them and know what they're doing to design it is the difference. Like when I sat down with my engine builder, when I had this idea of purchasing the racer, I'd had that 6 litre Ford in my last car, very successful, made 650 horsepower. Went really well, and I sat down with John. But what we did there was we started with something we always tried to gain. The following year we wanted more horsepower. And how do we just get a little bit more out of it? So I sat down with him this time and I said, "Go your hardest. I'm not gonna just tell me what it's all gonna do at the end." So he pieced together something, and with help, because he works with guys in America. And look, same thing you said with heads, and I mean, it's quite amazing. Like, engines like mine, 800 horsepower, only, 11.8 to 1 compression running on 98, pump gas. But it's all in the heads, it's all in the flow, it's all in the size of the, the stroke, and, how you put that, how you design that engine, and that's what it sort of come down to. And the beauty is when you do something right the first time, and I can honestly say this, in 9 years, all we've ever done is just replace components. We've never tried to chase more horsepower.
Yeah.
So why would you? I'm comfortable driving what I drive, and it's got oodles for me. And so I keep getting asked, are you going to put a 7 litre in it now? And I said, no, man, she's just staying like it is, and that'll, that's good. It's a good fun car, and probably definitely the most pleasurable thing to drive that I've ever had. So puts a smile on my face all the time.
I was going to say it's definitely one of the most pleasurable race cars to listen to as well. We every time it's out and about, we love it. So
yeah,
and you wouldn't be human if you didn't say that you didn't love people actually coming up to you that you don't know saying that. So it's really cool. And look, I always wanted something a little bit different too. Like, me and Greg Gardner, probably run identical engines actually. it's just something a little bit different. And look, when it comes to the old Ford and Holden and Chevy and all that stuff, I mean, at the end of the day, they're race engines. I've got one tiny little component on my engine that's a factory item. Everything else is, a race item. So, good componentry. Doesn't mean it won't break, but you've got a better than even chance of it, going the distance. And honestly, the trick is throwing away perfectly good-looking parts just because you should. That's the secret to 90% success rate. That it's exactly that. I get asked that a lot, and you've got to find it in yourself to throw away a lot of good-looking parts that you should just change. Yeah,
they've got a limited span, so you need to make that decision before the lifespan's over. You're saying, Mick?
Exactly. Yeah, and that's that can be like I'm in an engine rebuild now that's $30,000 worth because a $6,000 or $7,000 set of lifters is only done 2 seasons, but just put them in the box, even though they look perfectly fine. Put them in the box, get a new set, and those sorts of things is what makes motors, go for sure.
Yeah, and it's tough because then the flip side of that, Mick, is with our style of racing is it's very expensive to go to Fink and have a silly failure, isn't it? We've done a lot of time in the shed with our old boy, and you sort of get to the point you're like, well, how much more are we going to do? But the problem there is that $20 component you really have to do, because otherwise that $20 can cost you $20,000 down the track, and that's just not really. So yeah, it does become an interesting game of timing the parts. There's definitely people that'll string them out. We run CVs a little bit longer than most do. On the word of Fortin, he's sort of given us that information, and a few people think we're a bit wild running them, but we haven't had a failure, and his system seems to work quite well. And I suppose, like you said, but then the flip side of that is, at the time we were on a 450 horsepower LS1, so maybe that's the difference, because at 820 horsepower, well, that's a different game, isn't it? But Mick, it does. Right. Oh, sorry.
No, you're right. I was going to say, and the advent of torque converters is by far the biggest improvement in off-road in the last 15 years in a transaxle. So that has definitely saved a hell of a lot of componentry, drivetrain componentry, running torque converters in the open class cars, and without them, definitely you see a lot more failures.
Yeah, I do agree. The first year we went to Fink, we raced the Jimco, and it was a clutch car. And the only thing we changed the next year was it ended up having a torque converter in it. And mate, the outright difference in how we felt like we were treating that car was huge. Like with the torque converter, you felt like you were able to get across the whoops, whereas when you had the clutch in it, it was just you were beating that car to death.
Yeah, the gearbox chatter was nasty. It felt wrong, but it was good. But yeah, Mick, the other thing there, though, it leads me to ask, because I wanted to ask you, we were talking about, this growth in North Queensland with respect to you guys getting into this podium position. Do you also think, because it is a nice segue for where I wanted to go with this, is Burdekin, the race up at Burdekin, I'm talking about the 300 before we get to the Don. You and Talbot have been running that for a while, and I know you know from Josh and I's opinion, I think that's a national level race just at a local club level, and it's brilliant. Like, don't you agree, Josh? What we learnt driving at Burdekin has translated into us stepping up our speed, because, again, for anyone that is listening along at home and you're anywhere, get in your car, come to the Burdekin, come to the Don as well. We'll get to that, but Burdekin, even as a local, and I use the word as a state round, it's one that I feel that it's perfect for trophy trucks. It's perfect for Prober. It has whoops in it now. It has jumps off lead. It's just a driver's track, and it's an absolute pleasure to go and race at Burdekin. It's one, every time we talk about it, hey, Josh, we're like, what are the 3 races, or, 4 races now, because we've got to add Don to it. We haven't done Don, but, we love Gundy, we love Fink, we love Burdekin. That was the races that, if we could do 3 a year, that's what we're, if we're aiming, they were the 3. And probably a lot of people go, Burdekin? No, mate, it probably we'd do that, don't you agree, Josh, over most races?
Oh, for the fish burgers too. The fish burgers at halftime, always fantastic.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, look, I think Burdekin's evolved. When I did have time away when I became a footy player for about 14 years, and then when I first got back into the club, I stayed a member, but I got back in, and the whole sport was on a little bit of a lull then, so it was a bit harder. But back in 2000, I jumped back in, and I'd bought a car, and I'd got back into it, and look, predominantly we used to race short course racing there. 150 k's for the weekend, and it was easy with lower club members, the amount of club members and stuff. It was easy. Then that sort of race evolved into about 10 years ago, and it was a bit of a selfish reason, I guess, why it became a little bit of a long course with Fink whoops in it, because once I started going to Fink and Talbot would sort of come on board racing, bought my car that I used to have, and we started racing, we wanted to create a race there which actually prepared you for Fink. So the whole idea, because predominantly in North Queensland, we used to just race short course racing, right? So then people would go off to a national. Like I went to my first national at Gundawindi and sort of got me rear end handed to me on a plate, because I just was not prepared for what I was about to go into, right? So we sort of devised this plan that we thought that, 5 weeks out from Fink, this is a perfect opportunity. And the thing I say to a lot of people now is, come and race that, and if your car can't finish Burdekin, no point going to Fink. Yeah. So if it doesn't finish Burdekin, and there's a stupid reason for that, we'll go home and fix it properly before you go to Fink, because I've been out to Fink in 2007, and it literally handed me ass to me on a platter. So after only 20k, so I swore black and blue that I would not go back out to Fink until I had something that could do Fink properly. And then I was probably more prepared to do it. So the evolution of Burdekin become a race to prepare not only me and Talbot, but our mates for Fink. I guess in a bit of a round way, it's not the whole reason, but we wanted it to be a tough event. We think it is that to a certain extent. So, you do 280 sort of plus Ks for the weekend, and it's 5 weeks out, so you got plenty of time to fix the car. And I think, it's put me in good stead for Fink. I can tell you, I've, when I've raced Burdekin and then continued on only 5 weeks later to do Fink, you're really prepared. You're race fit, things like that. That's sort of very underrated, being race fit. And it's a great event, and we unfortunately couldn't have it this year because we got 300 mil of rain bloody the weekend before, but anyway, that's okay. We'll come back again.
Absolutely, and I think it's going to continue raining this week. We're going to get wet. Yeah. But anyway, that's a good thing for the farmers. We don't complain about that, but unfortunately Burdekin, but there's always next year. Hopefully we'll come up and hang out at Burdekin with you, mate. That'll be a good one. But then, so that sort of explained how you got involved in organising, like you've taken the next step from a club member to an organiser. But I suppose that leads us on to, let's talk about the Don. I mean, that's the one now that it's really captured the heart and minds of, and I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, it's the ability to pass in the sand, because that's one thing that probably a lot of people don't understand. We don't race like Mexico. I mean, there is obviously a bit of Fink. There is opportunities, but a lot of it is more like we race on single trail, really, don't we? Like car single track. So, like there's not a lot of opportunities for passing, whereas at Burdekin, I'll let you take it away, but, it's the river, isn't it? Like, what is the course markers at the Don River? And, sorry, did I say Burdekin? I meant the Don River. So when we go to Don, it really is a true, quite an interesting race where we see 3 cars passing at a time and all sorts of wild things happening in the bottom of the river there.
Yeah, and the good thing is the fact that the racetrack's effectively 90% of the racetrack is 50 meters wide, and that's what it's all about, right? So we do a reverse grid, slowest starts first, or it's sort of just seeded, right? So presumably slowest first to quickest last. And that's the beauty of it. It is relatively safe because we explained to the drivers at briefing that basically you don't have to get out of the road for the fast guy behind you, which is very, very unusual, right? In off-road in Australia. You're meant to pull over and let the fastest car by. Well, in the Don River, you don't have to do that. You stay on your line, and those guys have got to come around you because they've got the opportunity, right? There's 50 meters wide. It does come into tight sections occasionally. And we've got 2 lanes up on higher sections of the track, which are more of a traditional sort of gravelly dirt rather than completely all sand. So even though it's assumed that it's 50 k's of sand, it's not really that. But there's so much opportunities to pass, and that race was born out of actually going back to Luke and the Baja 1000. That race idea at the Don River was born out of a section we did in that race, and that's because what we did in Don, what you do at the Don River is what Talbot and I experienced for about 50 miles at that 1000. So that's how that was born. So it's good.
Yeah. And I think the other brilliant thing is bringing the motorcycle club in, guys racing. How many motorbikes do you have racing? And obviously just run, again, our listeners and potential spectators that should, I'm telling you now, guys, come to the Don River in 2022. It's going to be an absolute cracker. Again, if you're only hearing about this race for the first time, the highlight is obviously the race. It's brilliant. The spectating's brilliant. There's so many opportunities. But the other key is you are in Bowen. I'm staying in a Bowen resort, feet up, looking at the beautiful bay of water. Where else can you do? There's no off-road racing that I know that within 5 minutes I can be at the pub looking at the ocean, in my resort. Like, it is truly one of the most spectacular locations to have an off-road race that's possible. So again, based out of Bowen, you head to Bowen to get to this race, and the Don River, it's in the as you head up towards Ayr and Townsville, you literally are racing under the highway. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And look, it's in the beautiful Whitsundays, region, and you can't get a nicer place to race. And look, it's a very simple format, and the best part about it is, look, we've been to many races, our club members, where you got to camp in town and then drive back out to the racetrack at some ridiculous hour in the morning, get yourself set up. Then the end of the day, you got to pack all your car up, go back. We wanted to put on a venue and a race where once you get there Thursday or whenever you wanted to come, you don't move, right? So you park up in your pit bay, and you can come and go out of the showgrounds anytime you like. But the best part is, once you set up camp, you're there, and the race starts out on the road out the front. And so it's quite a good format. We have cars start at, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the car race is usually done by lunchtime. And there's a little bit of changeover time, and then the bike race starts at about 12:30, 1 o'clock. Last year we introduced a parc fermé at the finish line, which was massively successful. The reverse format, it creates a situation where the race doesn't stretch out. It actually finishes fairly, because you've got the slower cars starting first, and then maybe the quickest car's not leaving for 20 minutes later. Even though you do get past, and if it was the other way around, you would have passed those cars again. The finish time from the first to the last car isn't hours. It's 3/4 of an hour total, and that's the best part about it. So where everyone gets to do 150 k's in a good time frame off the track, bikes on, and it is a good spectator thing. You can get to a lot of venues that you can see the race, and I believe hopefully we got you guys back again this year doing hopefully some live streaming and some more stuff. So watch this space. I think we've got some stuff hopefully organised for this year. But I got to tell you the story. I got to tell you the story how Don River come about. Is that okay?
We'd love to hear it.
Tell you that?
Yeah, absolutely. Love to hear
it. So I love this story because it's 100% true, and it's typical Aussie stuff, right? So we had the pleasure of getting asked to go to Baja, and we did that. And Talbot and I jumped in the car at 8:30 in the morning, and we got going about 20 miles, and we got bogged in a silt bed, which we'd went and had a look at the weekend before, and we'd stuck in that for 45 minutes. And I just thought, man, oh man, the next 375 miles is going to be brutal. And it was, but about sort of probably an hour after we got out of that silt bed, we dropped down into a river. Now, I thought to myself, well, okay, we're just going to maybe go across the river. or we're just going to go along for a little while and then we're going to hop out. Well, we stayed in that river for 40-something miles, so 60, 70 Ks. And we went through one section and the smallest rock we drove over was a football. Like, so the whole riverbed was just football-sized rocks. And the noises that were coming and the bang and clangs that were coming up underneath that car from the rocks flicking up and hitting it were phenomenal. And there's probably three stretches of racetrack that I remember that day, and that was one of them. So that really come to mind. So probably fast forward about 6 months after that, and Talbot, who was in the car with me at the time I was driving, he's got a chopper that he uses for work and recreation, and he had to take it down to Mackay to the Whitsundays. And anyway, when he was flying back, he flew over the Bowen River, and he sort of looked up the river and thought, man, this is his words. He said, geez, that looked like what me and Mick that did that time, at Baja. So he took a detour and he flew right up the river, flew about 50K up the river. And probably about 3 weeks later, as it turns out, 3 weeks later, he rings me up one day and he goes, what are you guys doing? It's a Sunday afternoon. He goes, I've got an idea for a race. He said, I'll bring a few beers over. So we rang our other partners in crime, Dave Muir and Courtney Muir, and we literally sat out the back of my shed and we were talking for a while, and Talbot goes, look, I've got this idea for a race. And he explained the Bowen River, and I remember sitting back in the seat, and I remember looking at Dave and Courtney, and I remember thinking to myself, we couldn't do that. And then after about 5 minutes, we were already starting to plan it. So it went from just an idea of a few beers in the back shed to, let's go down to Bowen next weekend. So we loaded the quads down to Bowen. We threw them in the river and off we went. We spent the whole day riding up the river, and that's when we realised it was doable. And that's exactly how it all happened. And just a couple of mates and an idea born from something that we did overseas. Would we have attempted to do something like that if we hadn't have done that sort of race in Bar? Probably not, because when we sort of sprung the idea to everyone's going, you what? You're mad? Like, really? You want to race in the sand up the river? What do you want to do that for? And look, I'm pretty proud of it. I think it's probably, it's a very unique event. And one thing we're probably going to have a problem with this year is we're going to have to cap the numbers. Unfortunately, because there's just so much you can fit in one day, and I think the cap, we haven't announced it yet, but I think the cap's going to be about 120 cars and 300 bikes. So if we can achieve that, because we need to grow this thing at a level that we can control and understand what the event requires as it gets bigger and bigger. So we've decided to sort of just grow slowly. Or quickly or slowly, whichever way you want to look at it. But
amazing.
In 4 years,
brilliant, because it's amazing, that race, how it's truly captured the heart and minds of people, and not just on a Queensland level, because we've got top level Queensland competitors, but mate, you've had interest from legitimately all over Australia. Yeah,
and look, COVID's held it back a little bit the last couple of years. Last year we had 108 entries. From as far away as WA, Bo Robinson and Brad Smoothie were going to come last year, and because their trucks were over this way, and then COVID obviously cut a lot of that short. But I'm as much as I'm really proud of it all and all that, I am a little bit concerned this year, just because of the growth, and we're going to probably have to have disappointed people who might not make it in, which I know Fink's experienced that the last few years and stuff. So it's one thing though that we sort of got to put a cap on it, and that'll be it. Like it's not. I don't think it'll be something where let's just allow another 20 or something. Like, that'll be it. And so when entries do open, I think everyone needs to be on the computer for sure. So
interest for our races. Is there a date set for that entry?
Yeah, so second weekend in September. You got me here. I think it's the 10th and 11th September. Interestingly, we picked that time of the year because that is the driest time of the year in this part of the country, which ensures, hopefully that the river's got no water in it. We did have a bit more last year because we had 100 mil of rain 2 weekends before the race, which sort of helped go into the aquifer there. And what happens is the farmers stop pumping out of the river. And it's sort of because all their land was wet. So instead of the water sucking down well below, top of sand level, there was a little area there where it was a bit above. But other than that, look, generally it's pretty good. And look, it's just an amazing experience. I've done okay there, and I've come second. And last year had a few headaches, but hiccups there with a couple of issues. But yeah, no, we've had Toby up there, Toby Price, I mean. So he loved it and he's endorsed it really well, and he's hoping to come back this year. He's pretty keen. I could honestly say, mate, it's the only time I've ever passed Toby Price and probably ever will.
But that's because
I tell everyone that all the time. So,
hey, Mick, that's because he's in one of those trucks. See, we don't call them trophy trucks because they don't win any trophies.
No, that's right. That's good. Oh, Billy. So Toby was driving Billy's truck that day, and I caught him at the end of the first lap, and we dove down to the river, and I don't quite think my accelerator's ever been pushed so hard to the floor as that day when I knew I was going to probably have the only time in my life I'll ever pass Toby Price. So that was a pretty cool day. Look, it's looking big.
Yeah, that was the year that he rode his Dakar bike as well, and won the event on the motocross. That's another side of it that's so amazing, and it draws eyes into both sides, doesn't it? We get to, and most of us come from bike riding background, so we get to enjoy that dirt bike and the good old days. They're long behind me, but they're the good old days. And then the flip side is we've got the next generation of off-road racers, because it's such an amazing melting pot at the showgrounds on Friday night, where you see, again, 300 motorbikes, 120 cars, all their crews, all interacting, mingling. I think that's something like, again, Fink does have it, but Don River is the other one. That we've got that melting pot of backgrounds, communities, and everyone coming together. And again, the eyes are on it with respect to, again, you alluded to, last year, Bo Robinson was literally on his way over, wasn't he? He had his truck and Smoothie had his truck on the way. Yep. Also, unfortunately, weather events, but Greg Gartner was on his way up or planning on coming. Just didn't play out with everything that was going on in the nation at the time. But, hopefully this year we can get our noms in early. And, man, if you imagine, because, again, and obviously, I should say, Billy Geddes is there, and he's been a stalwart for Don, and he's very, very fast. He's always at the pointy end. A few little mechanical issues slowing him up, because, again, that's probably something else that we, don't need to, or need to allude to with it extra amount of load. Like, guys that have no issues all year, they go to the Don and they go through that heavy sand on 40-inch tires, and it's a bit of a different game for their automatic transmissions, for all the, motors loading up the way that, I think Billy was telling me one of the traps for him was he didn't realize that he was going to use as much fuel. He uses more fuel at Don than he does at the Fink. So, all of those game-changing elements coming in and making it what it is, which is one of the greatest off-road races. So again, guys, all our four-wheel drive listeners and off-road racers, if you've got the opportunity, second weekend you said in September, Don River Dash up in Bowen, book your accommodation. That's an absolute winner. And we'll show those dates again, and we'll put them in the link and everything like that, because we want to spread that. But hey, mate, the other thing, because again, I've said it a couple of times, you've raced everything from Class 10, you've got a trophy truck over in America, you've got one of the premier pro buggies in Australia. What's next? What's your next 12 months looking like, Mick? Is it farming, or is it racing cars? Is it all,
look, we again, probably the experiences, which it's funny, hey, like the old movie Sliding Doors, where there was an opportunity where I was looking at buying a new open class car, and a few years ago, and Class 7 was 7-litre motors were knocked on the head. So I sort of knocked the idea of a new car on the head at the time. And then what I decided to do after being asked to drive, and I even navigated for Luke at the Mint 400, was I thought to myself, well, maybe rather than spending money on a new car, maybe I should just buy a car over there. So that led to me buying a Class 10 over there, which was a phenomenal little car. And it's actually here in Australia now. So Dave Muir and Courtney are racing it at Fink this year. And we belted the bejeevers out of that thing at the Mint in amongst all the trophy trucks, and it survived. And that was a great experience. So then that sort of led me to we got out of the car though, and we were pretty beat up, I've got to say. Talbot did the second lap, and I jumped back in the third lap onwards and finished the race, and that beat us up. And that just, we got back to racer engineer, and I said to Dale Dondell, he goes, "How'd you go?" And I said, "Oh, look, man," I said, "if I ever do that race again, it's going to have to be in a trophy truck." And we all laughed, and everyone joked, and I went home, and about a month later, he rang me up. He said, "You still want to buy a trophy truck?" And I thought to myself, oh, crap. And so anyway, cut a long story short, I got on the phone again to Talbot, and I said, "Look, I can't do this on my own. You interested?" And so we got halves in that. So where does the next 12 months bring? Well, we've been over to America. I went over in January with Aaron James. We went over, prepped the truck, and we got over to America the second time, in time for the Mint 400. And we were about 2 days into prepping a truck, and Talbot come over to me and said, "Come and have a look at this truck over here." And it was the Milking It Motorsports truck. So it had been brought in for a bit of race prep. And Talbot said, "We should buy this truck." And I said, I thought he was joking. I said, "You're mad." And anyway, we talked about it for another half an hour, and so we ended up buying that truck. So we stepped up from probably a 9-year-old racer with about 800 horsepower to this 3-year-old latest greatest truck at a really good price. I've got to say, we got it at a good price, and so we attempted to race that, but as it goes, and a lot of people do know, and Talbot had a bit of a mishap in it in the first lap, and didn't finish the lap. So unfortunately, didn't get to drive at that. So what's up next? Well, I sort of couldn't go to Fink, which timed in not too bad with, not spending 10 grand to go to Fink, which it always costs you 10 grand to go there. So I decided, I said, well, better stay in from that and do this other thing that I was supposed to do. And so now we're attempting to go back. Well, first of all, I guess we've got some short course racing, a little 10 car, which is fantastic. So I'll do that. It's so fun to drive that little thing. And then we'll probably do Hillston. I'm going to go to the ARB round there, get this motor together, and then there's another little race at Moranbah, and then I want to do Gundawindi. Look, Gundawindi, I know we talk about Don River as a great race, and Fink is a great race, but I think you did ask me early in the night there, what's my favourite race, and honestly, Gundawindi is probably my favourite race. The other one, I used to have real admiration for Waikerie. That was a fantastic event. But Gundawindi, you do that. There's a nice split. So there's, 4 weeks, a month between Hillston and to Gundy, and then another month to Don River. And then 2 weeks after Don River, we're Talbot and I are going to fly to the States and do a race over there, a 300-mile race for a bit more seat time. And then we'll get the truck all prepped up, and we're going to go back and do the Parker 425. So in January. So that's our next big thing we were going to do. We want to try and that's going to be more of a bunch of mates trip too. A lot of mates we travel with, and within Queensland and stuff. There's a bunch of mates there that are going to travel with us and do that event. That'll be good fun. And I think, as I probably told you guys, we were going to attempt to do Baja this year. But once we got to America and realised what's involved with these trucks, we realised we weren't really prepared to go do a race like that. So if you guys know Talbot like I know you do, and you know me, preparation is everything. And we felt that we probably needed to do a year before we attempted a race like Baja. So we'll probably go to Baja next year in that truck at some point. I was hoping to go this year because, as we know, Kevy Knott's going over in his car, and there's going to be a bit of an Aussie flavour to it there. But I think we're doing the right thing. I think we'll get a little bit more seat time. I mean, I didn't get to race this trip. Obviously, we did plenty of testing. I drove the car plenty at Barstow and got completely wowed by what trucks can do over there. But yeah, I think we need a little bit more time, and as we shown with the tip over that Talbot did, you can be the best driver in the world, but you really got to understand what you're driving. And neither of us had driven trucks before, so we're not, we never went over there pretending that we were going to do anything special. We just wanted to go over there and do it for our own reasons, and we're doing that. And with that, hence the reason why I guess I've been a little bit quiet about it on the usual social media stuff, because it's not a look at me thing. It's more just something that a bunch of mates are going to do. And look, and you guys know, when you do those trips over there, it's all about the mates you take with you. It's all about the good times. It's all about the experiences and stuff you'll never forget the rest of your life.
Absolutely. No, that's brilliant, mate. And what a varied range of events you're doing. It's just such a great time coming out of a couple of tough years with COVID, as you mentioned, to be able to get back traveling, get back racing and have those experiences. It's something that, it's life-changing, isn't it? Like, to be able to enjoy this sort of stuff. Yeah, and again, probably the best thing that I've enjoyed listening, the races are, again, a huge range. Like Parker 425, for anyone listening along, is right on the river of the Colorado River in Arizona. Yep. It's there. It's a bit of a probably most people know Lake Havasu, where they run all the power boats above the dam there. But Parker's the downhill city there, and they race through the desert. It's sort of a rocky terrain, fast roads, that sort of thing. But they also, we get a lot of footage where they're skidding along down the bitumen right beside, and there's a big party going on with all the spectators on boats and it's just an experience that you just don't get. Like, again, we've talked about the Don, we've talked about Parker. Like, what an event, what an exciting place. And, mate, I'm pumped for you. I don't know if you heard me before, Josh. I said, "Oh, mate, what are you doing in February? We might have to book some plane tickets, I think. This sounds like a good time."
Well, it's actually better. It's actually January, so it's a good time of the year to be away.
It is perfect. Hey, mate, now listen, we are going to pull it up there. We're going to have to get you back on, Mick, because I had a list of questions for you, and we haven't even really touched the sides just yet. But we'll make sure that we catch up with you again and what's going on with racing, maybe a bit closer to Don. Oh, look at technology, Josh, here.
Perfect.
Run us through the dates again. Now, listen, sorry, I might have mentioned it before, but can you tell us, for our racing listeners, do you have a date for the opening of entries yet for this? So when they've got to be ready to hit that computer link, have you got one of them?
We haven't got a date, but if usually we got entries open for a month and they close 2 weeks before the event. So look, I would say last year I think we opened them around the 20th or so of July, from memory. So late July. So there'll be plenty of information. Look, there's a lot happening on the Don River Dash this year. It's one thing I've been proud of. It's actually doubled in size every year, and this year it's already doubled in a lot of ways. We'll have a website, a standalone website for it. We've got information, messenger pages there. We get messages literally every day. Like today, I had we had two requests for information on it. That's every day. It's just monotonous, and it's great. It's great, not just from competitors, but from people, want to travel to it to have a look. So yeah, probably late July. There'll be plenty of information come out about it. But let's. What I'm so happy about this year, lads. I regardless of which organisation runs races and whatever, how cool is it that everyone's racing again? Yeah. Like, look at today, and the races that happened down there, and our good mate Ryan Talu, who won the race today. How cool is that? And honestly, like you guys have known me for a lot of years, and honestly, I just love it when everyone goes out and races their cars. I don't care where they do it, as long as they're out there racing their cars. In the last couple of years, it's been real tough. I can't say we've been too disappointed in Queensland. Our events have been going really well, and not too many COVID cancellations. And, like in Queensland at the moment, I think we're averaging 69, 70 cars to a race. So like things are going really good here, but how good is it? All the other states have just been able to get up and running again. Put all these races that you've heard about for years, Perilla, all these places, Waikery's back on,
Yep.
regardless if it's MA or AASA or AORA, like how cool is it that everyone's racing again?
Yeah, we talked about that on, I think it was our last podcast too, Josh, that again, it was a bit of animosity to start off with. There was a little bit of, this and this, but really now everyone's relaxed and we fit into, you can choose your organization, you can choose your style of racing, you can choose, heck, you can just pick and choose events if that's the way you want to go. And it's just, there is great racing absolutely across the board, and 2022 is absolutely going to be a perler.
It already has, and yeah, it's good.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, Mick, we have hit the hour mark, so we will wrap it up, but it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I mean, I won't lie, we're mates on and off camera, so it's a pleasure to chat to you at any time. I know I've had a couple of beers around the Burdekin fire with you, and we always have great chats about off-road racing and events and all sorts of stuff. But, mate, it's been a pleasure, and again, I reckon we need to book you back in. When you've got a couple of big events, we'll catch up with you again, because you are, I said it at the start, international man of mystery. That's what
I think it's gone an hour because apparently I talk too much, so maybe that's why it's already gone an hour. But
mate,
I love it. I love talking off road. I love what you guys do. Look, there's so many people out there, that are so great in this sport. It's so infectious, and it is surprising that after a lot of years of doing this, I'm no less motivated than I was when I started. And that's crazy to think. When you're a footballer, when you get a bit older and you're broken down, you just went, I should give it away. But when you're a racer, you just go, oh, man, I've got to keep going to races because I'm getting too old. Like you just got to keep going and keep doing them. So, mate, good on you. Thanks for having me on, and I really appreciate the time, having me on to sort of tell me a few of my experiences. And yeah, love to come back on anytime.
Brilliant, Mick. Excellent.
Well, thanks, Mick. I think one thing that probably didn't get said is Mick is probably the genuine nice guy of off-road racing. He's always willing to help, always willing to have a chat. And, mate, personally, I'm just grateful to hear that story about how Don River actually come about. It's an awesome story.
It is. Thanks, Mick. Appreciate everything, and I appreciate you giving us your time.
Thanks, boys.